Hello, Macador's Football Fan TV. This is our League of Ireland show. An action-packed week after a double header last week with the Friday and Monday games. We were just back with a Friday game now to discuss. Myself and Gary. I suppose Gary were fresh after doing our watch along last night, so would have said it's been a while since I've seen you, but I saw you last night, so lots to get talking about. I suppose we'll start with the Dublin Derby at Dalymount Park, a 3-1 win for Shamrock Rovers. Max Murphy scoring an own goal in front of the Shamrock Rovers fans was obviously a very high point for Rovers. Andrew Lyons scoring the 5th minute. And then Junior scoring a 68th minute, with Dan Mandreo then scoring a minute later to probably give Bows no hope in that game. So I suppose when you saw the scoreline, were you shocked considering they had just went and spanked Shells 4-1 at Talca Park on Monday?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to predict the derby, but Rovers are in great form at the moment, and they're on a really good run. They've played some of their closest rivals and they've beaten them all. So I thought it was a very impressive win for Rovers, and they do seem, having gone through a few years, I think, where Bows were outperforming in the derby. Let's say they're outperforming their league position. In recent derbies, Rovers do seem to have got the measure of them. So, yeah, I suppose, it was an excellent win for Rovers, a crucial win. It keeps them right bang in the title race. But it'll be bitterly disappointing for Bows, and particularly having just got back into the game. I mean, having come back to 2-1 with 22 minutes to go, a quarter of the game to go, you would have fancied home crowd, everyone going nuts, that they could have really thrown the kitchen sink at Rovers. But Rovers to go straight up the other end and get the third goal must just be an absolute sickener, and that killed the game, obviously.
And especially who it was who scored the goal. They really don't like Dan Mandreo at Dalymount Park. But yeah, I suppose, like, from Shamrock Rovers' point of view, they just seem to be hitting a good stride now at the moment. They're hot on Derry's heels. Regarding Bows, they're just so inconsistent. Like, one week they can do what they did against Shells, and the next week they lose against Shamrock Rovers. And you're kind of looking at it. Keith Long is under pressure, but in reality, should he be? You know, they've overachieved over so many of the last seasons that, you know, the players that he's brought in and stuff like that, and I see people calling for him to be sacked, but yeah, he's the one bringing in player year after year to replace the players that they have at the helm there. And I think they really lost, you know, it's all well and good replacing players, but when you're replacing characters and you look at the players that they lost, you know, with Bucko and Rob Cornwall and stuff like that, Keith Ward, who are all big players for the club, I think, and big characters within the dressing room. And I think once you take that out of the dressing room, I think then you lose something big. And I think that's what where Bows are at the moment. And as I said, you can replace players, but it's very hard to replace characters and dressing room ethos and ethics within the dressing room. And I think maybe James Talbot's the only one who's maybe carrying them. I don't know, I'm not in the dressing room, so I can't say that, but definitely they lost a good few leaders within their dressing room. And I think that maybe that's shown on a game like maybe Friday, where you do need leaders in that type of game.
Yeah, even if you look at the players they've lost across the city to Rovers, I mean, you mentioned Denny and Andy Lyons, you know, and there's more than that. Look, I don't think Keith Long should be under pressure. I think it's ridiculous, because every year Bows are losing key players. As you said, they lost leaders like Bucko and Rob Cornwall. A good shout out to Rob Cornwall getting that goal as well, a big shock in the MLS Cup. But you can't, I mean, Keith Long's done an incredible job there to keep them competitive when they lose the best players every year, whether it's Dundalk or Rovers or Coing. I think to some extent you can understand losing guys like Ross Tierney to Motherwell, losing Denny Grant to Huddersfield. That's going to happen in the League of Ireland and all clubs, and that's maybe a sign of success. But when you're losing players across the city to your biggest rivals, that's going to be a real blow. And Keith Long's done an incredible job there, and he keeps rebuilding. And I think the Bows fans have got to be patient, but it's very tough to be patient when you're losing games like Friday night. But it's not really a level playing field at the moment. I mean, Rovers are a full-time professional team that Rovers are not going to lose players to anyone else in this league unless they want to. Whereas Bows can be cherry picked. And I think the issue, and I know it's a big financial commitment, is to give longer contracts. And it's the old argument again, then you're stuck with players maybe you don't want in 2 and 3 year contracts. But I don't know. I certainly don't think Keith Long is the problem. In fact, if anything, I think Bose would be in a hell of a lot worse situation without Keith Long.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree. It's just it's a bit mad. I think it's just the way football's gone now. If you lose a couple of games, all of a sudden it's get him out, get him out, get him out. I just don't like if you do get rid of him, who do you bring in there? Like it's a big question. Would bringing someone in there ultimately be a downfall? And would that result in a relegation battle more than going up the table? They obviously have really good players there. Like Liam Burt, I think, is one of the best players in the league. Ali Coote's another great player as well. Then they've got Promise O'Share and other players like that. Juniors starting to score goals for them now as well. So they have good.
Talbot in goal. I mean, he's one of the best keepers in the league. Yeah.
And he's getting, called up to Ireland more often than not these days too because of his performances. So they, as you said, they have the makings of a good squad there, but for some reason it just doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment. But I don't know, and I don't think if sacking Keith Long is the answer. Only time will tell on that. But regarding Shamrock Rovers, like they always seem to get like a nice run in and around now. They really start hitting their stride. And they come really strong around now, and you can see all their players are in form at the moment. And you've got Mandrell in form. Andy Lyons is scoring nearly every week now, as well. So and they do look dangerous ever since the game against Shells when they brought on Mandrell, actually contributing that game for Aaron Green's goal. And since then they've kind of looked very, very dangerous, and they look like they're the champions for a reason. But I think they're just going to keep on going that upward trajectory now towards the European games in the summer. I think that's when they may fall off a little bit, just because their sole focus will obviously be on trying to do well in Europe, but obviously trying to do stuff in the league. Like last summer a little bit, they kind of fell off a little bit, but once they were out of Europe, they steadied the ship again and went on and comfortably won the league, in my opinion, which I think Derry could be. With them not being in Europe, I think it could suit Derry that bit more this season. And that's what, look, we want a title race. We don't want it to be a one-way thing like it was last year. I know Pats came close, but they never really looked like they were actually going to go and win it. Like, they done well to go and win the cup and stuff like that, but they just looked like they're a few players short. Whereas I think Derry, they could strengthen again in the summer, and that could maybe take them further down the season with Shamrock Rovers. And Rovers will probably add as well, considering they only got, I think it was Andy Lyons and Jack Byrne in the summer. So
yeah, I mean, Derry are in Europe, remember, but they are in the Conference League, so probably play less games than Rovers. I don't think Derry are seeded as well in the first round, so that potentially they could get a really tough draw. I was looking at this a couple of weeks ago when Derry was 6 points clear, and I was looking at the fixture list, and Rovers had some really tricky games up ahead. They'd Shells away in a Dublin derby, they'd Pats at home, they'd Dundalk at home, they had the trip to Bows, and Derry was 6 points clear. And I was looking, Derry had a much easier run of fixtures, and thinking there could be a real gap at the end of this. And it's turned out quite the opposite. As you said, Rovers have gone on an incredible run. They've won every game. The late winner against Shells, and they dug out those single goal victories against Pats and Dundalk. But what I told fully deserved, and definitely deserved to win again on Friday night. So I think you're right when it comes to Europe, because it's such a huge focus. The rewards are so great for our clubs, and particularly our champions, because they're in the Champions League. If they can get through a round, then they'll drop down to the Europa League, and then drop down again to the Europa Conference League at any stage if you're beaten. So, and potential to get group stage football really is only there for the champions, but there's a great chance, and that is the target for Rovers this season. Don't be in any doubt about that. They want group stage football, be that in the Conference League when it comes to it in the end. But obviously, it'd be fantastic if they could. I don't think the Champions League is anywhere realistic. It would be fantastic if they could get group stage football. in the Europa League or the Europa Conference League. And that's part of the reason they have such a big squad. They're going to need the squad. It's definitely going to be a squad game for them in July and August. That will give Derry more of a chance. I don't know how much Derry are going to focus on Europe. It depends on the draw. I mean, I know they'll have a good European run in the Brandywell as well. There's been some fantastic European nights up there. But it's much more difficult to reach the group stages from the first round of the Conference League. And particularly, Derry are almost certainly unseeded. I believe Rovers are probably just about going to miss out on seeding for the Champions League. That's still in doubt. There's still a couple of leagues. But the last spreadsheet I saw had Rovers just missing out. And that seeding is just so important and so crucial. So it's really it looks like it's going to be really unlucky. But maybe it's not done yet. A couple of leagues still to go. Or a couple of leagues that are important that are still in doubt. There are some of them already done and dusted effectively. But so Europe is going to be crucial. But the fact the gap has gone from 6 points down to 1 point will give Rovers a huge amount of heart in that. And from the way the title was race is looking very different than it was just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think, you look at Derry's result. I mean, they won 7-1 against UCD on Friday night. Will Patchen getting on the score sheet again, Jamie McGonigal getting a hat-trick, Cameron McJanet getting a goal, Cameron Dunnigan getting a goal, Ronan Boyce getting a goal, and Alex Nolan got the goal for UCD. It's not really a result that surprised me in many ways. I think someone was going to get a bit of a backlash from the results that Derry were getting. They weren't showing the level that they were showing earlier in the season, but they seem to be back to that level now once again, and maybe it was just a little slip up, and Rory Higgins has addressed that, and they'll hopefully be trying to kick on from here. As I say, I wanted to be a competitive title race this year. I wanted to come right down to the wire, and I'm hoping that Derry can maybe add some players in the summer to help them in Europe, and then to also help them with getting, well, I wouldn't say over the line, but getting to the finish line with Shamrock Rovers. So I think that'll be a serious title run then, I think.
Yeah, that was a crucial win for Derry because UCD actually have a very good record in the Brandywell in recent years. And yeah, I mean, Derry obviously would have been favourites. I was a bit surprised by the margin of it, particularly when Derry, as you said, they dropped points at home to Shells and drawn away to Drogheda, which were really 5 points you wouldn't expect them to drop. With all due respects to Shells, and I know Damien Duff's doing a great job, and Drogheda really overachieved again despite losing their manager and losing all their players. But I think it's going to be very heartening. But 7-1 wins don't win you titles. I mean, if you're going to win a league title, you got to, okay, it's great and blow teams away and it's great for the goal difference, but you got to be able to go and dig out the results. And a couple of tests coming up. I think Derry are away to Pats now this week, and that'll be a real test.
Winning at the Brandywell is not for everyone, Gary,
Okay. I was up there actually. I would sympathise with the UCD fans because I remember in 1990 Limerick were beaten 7-0 at the Brandywell, and I was the only away fan at the game. And I think Liam Coyle got a hat trick that night. He was on fire, and they just blew us away. If I say it wasn't a fair reflection of the dominance of the two teams, they'd probably have said, yeah, it should have been 10. But yeah, it's pretty depressing when you see your team just take an absolute hammering. And I do feel for the UCD fans that made the journey last Friday night.
I think this was a result that was huge for Derry's confidence and psychologically, just to get back to winning ways. They've got experienced players in there. They've players who've won leagues as well in there. You know what I mean? They've got Dummigan, they've got McElhenney, they've got Duffy, they've got Shane McElhenney at the back as well. So they've got good, strong leaders, as we mentioned about Bowes earlier. They've got good leaders in their squad, and they look like they're going to kick on now. As you said, they're against Pats now. This is a huge fix for them this week. I'll be actually at that game at Richmond Park, so that'll be a huge game for both sides. I think Pats will be looking at this game as a chance. Obviously, they're going to be the underdogs, but a chance to maybe just stumble Derry a little bit and maybe try and get on their heels, which also makes it interesting as well. To see if Pats can maybe kick on a bit, and again, in the summer will they strengthen as well, and will that help them maybe catch up or climb up the ladder a little bit more towards them? But I think no real shock when I saw the UCD result, to be honest with you. I suppose we'll move on to Oriel Park, where Shells were beaten 2-1 by Dundalk. I watched this game. I was doing another job, so I was working, so I actually didn't get to a game last week, but I did watch this game on LOI TV. And when I was looking back on some of the stuff that I saw online, I thought it was a bit ridiculous, the Shells players diving and this and that. I think if you're not a Dundalk fan, you don't look at that and you don't say that there's diving or whatever. There's game management, which is what all the good clubs in the league do. I see Shamrock Rovers doing it every single week, and that's probably why they are winning so many games, because they manage games so well. Their in-game management as well is very intelligent, and I think obviously Damien Duff would have learned a lot of that, and obviously would have carried that as a player, and obviously is taking that on to his players. But I see John Ross Wilson taking down the box. He got to the ball first before Daniel Kelly. Daniel Kelly doesn't see him, but he still makes contact with him in the box, and it was a foul. So therefore, it's a penalty. But I saw some stuff online, and I was just, blown away by the criticism that Shells are getting at the moment by a lot of people. I tend to forget how much Shells are hated by so many opposition fans, but yet they claim that Shells are irrelevant. So I don't understand it. Like, there's a big, thing against Shells, but yet they're irrelevant, so clearly they are relevant. But anyway, Damien Duff obviously gets the red card. That's a huge talking point for everybody else. He just seems to lose his head at Shane Griffin getting the second yellow. He loses his head, he gets sent off. It's not really a big deal. He got sent off, he walked off. There wasn't much, it wasn't like he stood around, he wasn't going to leave, which is the way, if you were reading reports online, that's what you would have read and that's what you would have believed. But Dundalk, they were good value for their goals, you know what I mean. The second goal was an unbelievable ball by Keith Ward as well, John Martin. I think it was his first touch of the game, and he scored a cracking header. It was I thought it was Pat Hubin actually, because it was such a good header. And Dan Kelly obviously getting the first goal as well, but the second goal was a goal worthy of winning any game, to be fair.
Yeah, look, it was a huge win for Dundalk as well, particularly being pegged back. Now, I know Dundalk were reduced to 10 men as well, but particularly being pegged back to get the winner so late. Yeah, I mean, look, Damien Duff is having his run-ins. I can have some sympathy with him. I know he's very frustrated with the standard of refereeing in the league, and he's having some issues with that. And yeah, I didn't see. I think he got a yellow card first and then got a red card. So I haven't actually seen that, or I haven't watched it back. But it will be a big blow to Shells. They had been they're on a very good away run, and it would have been a fantastic point in Oriel Park, and it's just a bitter blow to lose it so late. Particularly, I think Shells had a very good shout for a penalty as well before that, not given. So I can imagine Damien Duff isn't too happy and may get quite frustrated. And big match for Shells now at the weekend as well, away to Harps. I think Harps' only win so far was against Shells at Tolka. And there's a bit of a gap. There's a bit of a gap already there. I mean, Harps are 5 behind Shells. They're 6 behind Drogheda. And I think you're getting into must-win territory, even at this stage of the season. Certainly, it would be a must-not-lose for Harps. They could be letting Shells and Drogheda kind of pull away from them. And you end up in a 2-horse race then at the bottom.
Yeah, well, I would say just like something that came out recently was the injury to David Webster, so he'd be out for the rest of the season. I saw that this morning. I think that's huge for
that he's a massive loss for Harps. He's been a stalwart to their defence. He's been pretty much ever present. I think he'd missed one match all season, and before he got injured in the Bows game, and he's going to be a massive, massive loss, and I think they're going to struggle to replace him.
Yeah, no, me too. That's why I think Shells are actually have a great chance of going up there and winning this week, just because he's not playing. He's their captain, he's their leader. I think he was a huge part of them doing well, especially last year, defensively and stuff like that. He knows how to win games and grind out games, and the majority of the clubs that he's gone there and made a difference to that club. So I think him being out is huge for Shells, and I would never celebrate another player's injury or anything like that. But if you're looking at it as a chance to get one up on Finn Harps, it's definitely a chance for Shells to get one up on Finn Harps, which is unlucky. I like Finn Harps. They're great people up there. Obviously Ethan has been on the show here, and he works for Finn Harps there, and actually I would be quite friendly with Dave Webster himself. And it is a shame to see him out injured, and I do wish him all the best in his recovery, and I hope to see him back soon. I hope he just doesn't come back and then Harps are in the first division next season, because I think he still is a Premier Division player, and I still think he's a vital cog in that Finn Harps team.
Well, the thing about Harps is that, look, Ollie Horgan and Paul Hegarty I've said it many times in the show, they're doing an incredible job there, because Harps are effectively playing in the Premier Division with a budget significantly smaller than a number of the First Division clubs. And they are overachieving by staying in the division. And I certainly wouldn't bet against them. If you had to ask me now, I'd say Harps will end up in the playoffs, and probably against the likes of Galway or Waterford. And I know from experience, bitter experience twice, that Ballybuffet in a playoff is not the place you want to go. And Harps will be very, very tough to beat, and they will fight tooth and nail. And they're consistently overachieving, and Ollie Horgan never sends out a team that gives anything less than 100%, and you'll never get anything easy up in Ballybuffet. And I certainly wouldn't be at all confident of predicting a home defeat for Harps against anyone up there, so it'll be a very tough game on Friday night.
Yeah. But I just think just on Dundalk before we move on to Pats and Finn Harps after. But I think Dundalk, these are the type of games that they need to be winning. Shells have shown that they're a tough side to play against when they come away, and they put it up to most teams and obviously beat Derry. There was another obviously red card as well in that game as well. I actually didn't even see the red card, because as soon as I got pulled up in work, Stephen Bradley had been sent off, and I came back to watch it again. So that was another thing that I saw online, is that they were claiming that the Shells players got him sent off. Conspiracy theorists and all that. But look, I think Dundalk just need to keep trying to grind out results like that. They'll be looking to try and finish in the top four, and again, the summer is where I think everything's going to be crucial for a lot of teams in their recruitment, and if they can bring in players. But if you look at that ball by Keith Ward for the second goal, it's worthy of winning any game. He doesn't even take it by the fullback. He's kind of in between the fullback and the winger, and he curls it around. It is a ball you would have seen in the Premier League, a great cross, and it was inch perfect, to be honest with you, and you could have no real complaints about it. But I saw Damien Duffy was quite upset with the ref after the game. And I think if any other manager said it, it's just another manager going, saying about the rest. But because it's Damien Duff, everyone's like, oh, he's making a big ordeal about it, and everything just seems to be 10 times more under the microscope under Damien Duff than it is any other manager, for whatever reason, probably because how good of a player he was. But I just think it's getting a bit petty now. Everyone's trying to turn it into the Damien Duff's Shelburne show instead of just Shelburne. And he's tried to distance himself from that himself, but for some reason that tag hasn't gone away yet still.
Well, I think the thing is, Damien Duff is in any conversation for the greatest Republic of Ireland side of all time. So he's a superstar player that has come back to manage in the league. So, and with all due respects, even to the likes of Stephen Bradley, who's winning the leagues with Shamrock Rovers, Damien Duff is a far, far bigger name. Most people outside this league won't know who Stephen Bradley is. Everybody knows who Damien Duff is. And so he is always going to be the story. It is going to be more about him. He is a a superstar. Now, he might be not the type of person that wants the limelight or anything like that, but it is going to be more about him. And I really hope we can keep people like Damien Duff in the league. I think it's fantastic for the league that he wants to manage here. And I really hope he's successful at it. And because I think he's a fantastic coach. He's a real student of the game. I've said it before. He really focuses on tactics, etc. He just puts in such a huge effort. I can, even looking from afar, you can tell that Damien Duff is working morning, noon and night on that Shelbourne side, and he so desperately wants to succeed. And that's why it can be so frustrating for him when you see maybe the standard in some things that are not up to what they should be, which unfortunately they are in our league.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But no matter what we say, it's just going to keep going back to that. But we'll move on. St. Pat's obviously had a good win at home to Finn Harps. 2-0 win. Owen Doyle with a brace there, and he's getting himself back up the goal scoring charts, and another good win for Pats at home.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pats are in the title race, but I think they're very much in the race for the European spots, and certainly wouldn't rule them out having another good FAI Cup run, maybe winning the Cup again. And they're having a reasonable season. It will be interesting to see how they do against Derry. I mean, you would expect them to beat Finn Harps at home, but of course, Harps it's never an easy game. Nice to see Owen Doyle getting a couple of goals, because I had seen a bit of criticism of him actually online, and it was some St. Pat's fans that he wasn't scoring the goals that they'd actually expected him to bang in. I know he got a couple early in the season, if I remember rightly. But so it's good to see him get off the mark. He scores a lot of goals, and I'm sure he's going to bang in quite a few more for Pats. Pats are someone in the battle with the likes of Sligo Rovers, Dundalk, maybe Bohs if things improve, in the battle for the other couple of European places. But it does look like 1 and 2 in whatever order will be Rovers and Derry.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But I think, you just never know with Pats. They could go on a really long run. That was more so under O'Donnell. They seem to be a lot more solid. I think you would have backed them in a lot more games. Obviously, Tim Clancy, it's a bit of a new team. But again, and I'm going to say it again, it's probably the 5th time I've said it. Somewhere, if they can add in players, and recruitment will be the key, I think, for a lot of teams. If teams can get their recruitment right, they'll finish the season strongly, in my opinion. I think Shamrock Rovers, Pats, Derry, and probably Dundalk. I think if they recruit well, they'll probably end up in a top 4 position. Whereas I think anyone else, Sligo could be in the argument there as well. They got a good 3-2 win over Drogheda as well, which we'll speak about in a sec. But I think that's where Pats kind of are at the moment. Can they hang on to Darragh Burns? Is obviously a great little player. If he goes, do they get money for him, and they maybe reinvest that into the squad as well? So it will be interesting to see what happens there over the next couple of months. But I do think that they're a strong side, and this Friday will be a massive test for them, and it might give them a kind of idea and a gauge of where they are at the stage of the season. Yeah,
that's probably the most fascinating. Maybe we can go on and talk about the Battle of the Rovers as well. But that Pats Derry one for me on Friday night is an absolutely fascinating one, and it'll tell a lot about both teams, I expect.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think we'll probably have a preview show on that closer to the time as well, so we'll be discussing that. But Sligo beat Drogheda 3-2, goals in the second and third minute from David Cawley, and then George Poynton got a goal back in the 27th minute. Shane Blaney scored an OG in the 54th minute, and Gary Buckley then got the winner in the 90th minute. Bit of a crazy game if you look at it, because obviously they scored in the first 3 minutes, they scored 2 goals, and then they concede 2, and then they showed the character to come back and win the game in the 90th minute. Bit heartbreaking for Drogheda, I suppose, but that's the name of the game, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, Sligo had been on a bad run, and I was actually following this. I was down at the Longford Treaty game on Saturday. I wasn't working, but I was at the game. And look, you see David Cawley got to 2 goals in the first 3 minutes. You think it's game over. And Drogheda showed some character to come back. And then to have Evan Weir get a second yellow just after they equalised. And I was actually driving back because our game was about 15 minutes earlier. And so I actually thought it had finished 2-2, and it was on the phone I heard that Sligo had got the winner in added time. And it must have been a real body blow to Drogheda, but a fantastic winner for Sligo, because haven't had so many poor results recently against the UCDs. I think losing at home to Shelbourne. They really needed to win that, to get the 2 goals so early and then to be pegged back, and then for over half an hour to fail to break down 10 men. It really, really must have been very frustrating in the showgrounds, but then all is forgotten when you get the winner in added time. So crucial 3 points for Sligo Rovers. They had been talked about a few weeks ago as being in the title race. I don't think so anymore given their recent form, but they're definitely in the race for the European spots. But another team, I think Sligo actually missed a penalty in that game as well at 2-1. Forgot about that. So as I said, it would have been really frustrating if they hadn't won it. But another team that you're talking about, teams that need to strengthen in July, I think Liam Buckley could do with bringing in 1 or 2 players. But it was a big win for Sligo.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have the league table up in front of me here, and Sligo are sitting in 4th place, and you said they've been on a bad run. It's funny that teams that are on bad runs, they're still in these positions. Like, they're a point off Pats in 3rd, and they've all played 12 games. They've won 5. They've drawn 4, and they've lost 3. It came close with there. Could have been 5 draws. If they hadn't got that last minute winner, but. Look, they're sitting in a nice position there. They're a point above Dundalk. They're 4 points above Buzz. And they're 6 points away from Drogheda as well, who are in 7th. So they have a bit of a gap there on teams. And obviously they're quite close to St. Pat's. But as you said there, if they can manage to strengthen in the summer, the likelihood is they'll finish in a similar position to last season, and they'll probably be trying to finish higher than last season. But again, it comes down to recruitment. They've lost players like Johnny Kenny and John Mahan, but they've done well to be in the position they are so far. You look at other teams like Bows, who've kind of slipped in some ways, you would say, but still they're in 6th and they're 3 points off 5th place Dundalk. So it's a bit of a mad league table at the moment. Everyone's beating everybody. When I look at it, Shamrock Rovers and Derry are the top 2. There's a point between them, 27 points, 26 points. Then next after that is Pats. Then you got Sligo, Dundalk, and they can all be competing there because there's only 2 points between them really. And then you've got Bows, who are 4 points off them. Or 5 points, off Pats. So they're still kind of all in around each other. And then you've got Drogheda, Shells, Finn Harps, and UCD. And between, there's 5 points between Shells and Finn Harps, 6 points between Drogheda and Finn Harps. And then UCD, who in my opinion are gone. They haven't won a game yet. I think they're gone. So I think it's after that, it's between Finn Harps, Shells, and Drogheda, which I think everyone would have expected at the start of the season as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say UCD are gone yet, but they would certainly be favourites to finish bottom. There is only 3 points, I think, between themselves and Harps, so that's one win. They're probably going to play each other soon as well. And but I think UCD's best hopes is the playoff. I think Harps' concern might be that the likes of Shelbourne and maybe Drogheda in particular could get away from them. I think the 6 points, I kind of expected, and I still expect Shells to just get ahead of Drogheda and maybe finish in that 4th bottom place. But I think Harps would have expected to be in a battle with Drogheda and possibly finish ahead of Drogheda. And that 6 point gap must be a bit worrying for Ollie Horgan because, again, look, Harps realistically can't compete with the bigger clubs and the bigger budgets. I mean, they've got far bigger budgets than Harps, and Harps' target, I'm sure, at the start of the season was 8th, and they wouldn't be too disappointed with 9th. And it's probably still the target. But Drogheda are one of the teams that are in and about. They've got a similar budget to Harps. Similar overachieving. I mean, they're in the Premier Division on a First Division budget, and look, hats off to them. They're fantastic. Drogheda have lost Tim Clancy, they lost some of their best players, and they've still come back. And they were the first team, the only team to beat Dundalk apart from Shamrock Rovers, etc. I know they're playing them again on Friday night, and they've pulled off some fantastic results and almost got that draw on the showgrounds on Saturday with 10 men. So it's going to be a real battle there. I think UCD will finish bottom. I wouldn't totally write them off yet. Losing 7-1, they might have expected to lose in the Brandywell, even though, as I said, they have had a good record there in recent years. But 7-1 is going to be a big blow, and it dents the confidence, etc. They're away to Bows, another team that badly need a win on Friday night. But I'm sure UCD will fancy themselves to maybe pick up something. They do play very good football. They're actually very good to watch. And if you want to go along as a neutral and see a team playing the right way, go to the Bowl and watch UCD. Maybe they need to learn to be a bit more cynical or whatever at the back. And but they certainly do try and play football the right way, and they are good to watch. But I think they will finish bottom.
So you think they're gone, like me?
I don't necessarily think they're gone. I think they're still in the mix. They wouldn't want the gap to get too much bigger. But once it stays at 3 or 4 points, and they get their games against the likes of Harps, Drogheda, maybe even Shells, could be crucial.
Well, they need to start winning games. They weren't, they were probably unlucky against Shells earlier in the season. So look, maybe me saying they're gone is a bit harsh, but I just think, like, you're sitting on 4 points, you haven't won a game after 12 games. It doesn't, the writing's on the wall, in my opinion. But look, that's it. I suppose we'll move on to the First Division. Actually, just on the Finn Harps game and Shells games, that's a big 6 pointer this weekend, and I think that could be huge as well. If Shells can go and get 3 points, and then the gap is moved to 8 points from 5 points, or then if Finn Harps win, the gap's only 2 points. So it is really a 6 pointer there between the two sides. So it will be an interesting week of games, I'm sure, especially with Pats and Derry as well. So we'll move on to the First Division anyway. I suppose we'll move on to the game that you'll have a lot of interest in, Longford and Treaty in 0-0 at Bishopsgate on Saturday. Are we happy with that? Because Longford are on a bit of a good run at the minute.
Yeah, Longford are on a great run, actually. They haven't, I think Bray are the only team to have actually beaten them. None of the 3 full-time professional teams have managed to beat them yet. And I thought it was actually a very entertaining 0-0 draw. Both keepers had fantastic games, actually. Both teams had chances. Both teams could have won it. Tommy Barrett made some attacking subs trying to win it late on, which I was a bit surprised at. I was certainly sitting in the stand thinking I'd be delighted with a point here. Longford maybe shaded it, but I certainly thought a draw was a fair result. And although we did need a couple of brilliant Jack Brady saves to get that point. I think Longford will be in the playoffs. I don't think they just have enough. They would be, they've got a decent side. I don't think they're going to be able to challenge for the title just with the sheer number of games and the fact that there's 3 full-time professional teams with bigger budgets in the First Division. I think the title is probably between Cork and Galway at this stage, but I think Longford are nailed on for the playoffs. And I think my view is that Treaty are going to be in a battle with Bray and Wexford for the 5th playoff spot. That's the way it's going to be. I was very happy with the point in Longford. It was a hard-earned point. It's 6-match unbeaten run for Treaty, but coming into a weekend where we play Galway and Cork, Galway Friday night and Cork on Monday, it was good to pick up something on Saturday. Yeah,
no, I'd agree. The sides like Cork and Galway, I think with their budget and everything like that, I think they're obviously the favourites at the top of the league. I think Cork will be champions. I don't think Galway will, but I think definitely Cork are strong. They obviously got another win under their belt in the Cork derby, 3-2 win over Cove Ramblers. Rory Keaton, Matt Healy, and Keane Coleman with the goals for Cork, and Bunyan, O'Brien, Whitmarsh, and Conor Drinnan with the goals for Cove Ramblers. And I believe the attendance was nearly 4,000 at that game, which was great as well. So it's great to see those types of attendances in the first division with people saying there's not that much interest within it, but like with Cork doing well, they're always going to attract a lot of fans. Cork City, that is, and I think then we'll obviously mix that into a derby as well. I think it's great to see that nearly 4,000 fans were at that game.
Yeah, it was the first league win over Ramblers in St Coleman's Park for quite a few years. Now I know the appreciate have been in different divisions for a lot of that. But yeah, Cork City are probably the best supported club in the league, Premier or First Division, and when they're doing anyway well at all, they will certainly bring out the fans.
I think they have the highest social media following. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. I think they are, but sure, Aaron's looking after their socials, so I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case.
But and I mean, look, they are flying at the moment. I agree. I think they will win the league. But I certainly wouldn't write off Galway and John Caulfield. Cork looked the more impressive. They certainly seem to have really built a very strong first 11. They're very solid at the back. On to the couple of that Matt Healy in midfield is a lovely player, and they're scoring goals up front. So they do look the favourites. Galway have a game in hand. I think they're 3 points behind, and Galway are probably better at grinding out results, getting the look. They don't look as impressive to me as the Cork side, but I certainly, if you ask me who I think will win the league, I think Cork City will win, and Galway will be second. But I wouldn't totally. I'd never write off a John Caulfield side, basically, particularly when it's so close. The big disappointment for me has been Waterford. And I know Ian Morris has parted company with them now as well. That I mean, their budget is on a par with Cork and Galway, and they just haven't been getting the results, etc. They've been very disappointing. We can go on and talk about they did get a good win in the Southeast Derby, but they would have been expected to challenge for the title, and instead they're probably going to be in a battle with Longford for third place.
Yeah, we'll come and talk about Waterford when we come to their game, but I think just on Galway, you obviously mentioned there, that they're a strong side and whatever. They got a 2-0 win at home to Bray Wanderers, goals from Stephen Walsh and David Hurley, and another defeat for Bray. So I think that result wasn't a shock to me. I think Galway and Cork are going to push each other right to the wire, and I hope that is the case, because Galway never really pushed Shells to the wire until towards the back end of last season, and kind of UCD were kind of look more threatening at the time, to be honest with you. But you kind of look at it, I think it's between those two sides now for promotion. I think they're too strong. I think maybe getting rid of Ian Morris might have been a mistake on Waterford's part, because as you would have seen with Shelburne, he kind of grows into the season as it goes on. But look, obviously we've seen over the years that Waterford are very impatient in terms of their owners. And I know if they got new owners now, but they just always seem to kind of hit the panic button and want to get a new manager in and sack the manager. I'd love to know how many managers they've had over the last 2-3 seasons. It is very much hit the panic button with them, and I feel sorry for Ian Morris, who's a good man, and a good manager as well. I feel like this could be a black mark on his CV, that he got the boot so quick from Waterford. But then again, people might just look at it and go, they are a club that, unfortunately for their supporters who seem to really love the club, they always seem to suffer some sort of heartbreak, whether it's a manager getting sacked or a relegation or something going wrong behind the scenes, and then it tends to unravel then on the pitch, which seems to be the case at the minute. But I know we said we weren't going to talk about that yet, but we might as well, since we're on the topic.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ian Morris, he won the league last season. He was manager of the year, and as he said himself, he got the bullet. he was really unfortunate at Shelbourne. In fact, part of the issue was when you talk about Galway made a terrible start and they were playing catch up. And I think Shells virtually had the league won, and because they were 10, 12 points clear. I remember Shells beating Galway about 4-0 in May, which you just the equivalent just under a year ago, and the league was done and dusted at that point. And what probably happened is Shells did slack off a bit. They dropped a few points. Galway beat them, I think it was early August, and they made a bit of a run. But I don't think Galway were really. Maybe as a Shells fan, you might have been a small bit nervous looking over your shoulders, but it never really looked like there was a proper title race. I think it was done and dusted. Shells were always going to win it. And it's very hard to keep your focus in that situation when you have the league virtually done. And it's really harsh then to sack the manager for doing that because, hey, we were 12 points or whatever, we were clear in May and we only won it by whatever. And that's probably the way that people were looking at it. Waterford, as you say, it is very much a hire and fire. They were, I'd say, bitterly disappointed to go down. I was at the playoff in Richmond Park. I didn't expect them to lose to UCD. I don't think UCD expected to beat them, but on the night, it was certainly deserved. UCD deserved the win without question. But it would have been a big blow for Waterford to go down. They would have expected, they kept most of the squad, they kept the budget. They would have expected to come straight back up or at least be right up there challenging for the title. And look, we beat them in Limerick 2-1 and they were frankly we fully deserved to beat them a couple of weeks ago. And they didn't look like a side that maybe only in the last 15 minutes they got a goal back and they did kind of throw the kitchen sink at us, particularly in added time, that Jack Brady to make one great save. But other than that, I mean, for the previous 75 minutes, they were bitterly disappointing. And so they're well off the pace. They've dropped quite a few points. They're not. It's probably already too late. I think they're 9 points behind Cork already, and they're not going to make it up on both Cork and Galway. Particularly given there are so many games when you would expect Cork and Galway to put teams away. So Waterford would nearly need to win nearly every match from now to the end of the season, which isn't possible for them to win the league. So they're probably already looking at the playoffs. If they get it right, get a manager in, they'll be very dangerous in the playoffs. They'll be very, very tough to beat. And they still have a great chance of going up. But given the money they're spending, given they're a full-time team up against part-time and amateur teams in the first division, they would have expected to be a lot better than they have been. I mean, okay, they did go down and beat Wexford, but I mean, Wexford are pretty much an amateur side. They've certainly improved a lot since last season, and they're actually a very decent side. They were very unfortunate not to get a draw against Treaty United there on Monday, last Monday, but it's chalk and cheese. I mean, Waterford should be able to put away teams like that very comfortably, given certainly the budgets are just so totally different. But when it comes down to 11 against 11, it looks a lot more even.
Yeah, well, I think as well, Galway obviously have the new owners there with the Comer Group, so they could go out and buy loads of players now, depends on how their financials are. But it seems like that is a massive thing for Galway. They can reinvest into the academy and stuff like that now, which would be huge for them going forward. I foresee them being a Premier Division side. If it's not this year, it'll probably be next year. And I foresee them doing well then if they can manage to get a good academy. We know there's plenty of good players that come out of Galway. Aaron Connolly being one, Ryan Manning being another, just off the top of my head. But these types of players are coming from that type of area, and if they're getting the right training and stuff like that there, and as well as that, if they can bring in players and have a decent squad now to then add to that in years to come. But a good result for Galway nonetheless. And then, as you said about Waterford getting a good win, Phoenix Patterson getting the 2 goals there in the 9th and 69th minute against Wexford. And look, they need to maybe they're looking now to try and get a new manager bounce and try and get back on track that way, and hoping that the others above them slip up. But I don't think that either of them are going to slip up as much as Waterford need them to, for Waterford to capitalise. I think their best route now would be through the playoffs, and I think that's probably what their focus would be.
Yeah, just another thing on Galway, actually, the Comer brothers have got planning permission for this development centre for the academy in Athenry. I think they're in with the Irish Hockey Union as well for that. That's, as you say, I think Galway are definitely going to be a Premier Division club going forward. They have the stadium, they have the investment. If they don't, they're probably a very good bet to get up this year, but if they don't get up this year, they'll probably definitely go up next year. And I think the future is very bright in Galway. People looking on the outside, the Comer brothers are actually fantastic for Galway. There is no ulterior motives. The Eamon DC Park is owned by the local junior league, so there's no ulterior motive. They're not going into Galway to make money. They're going into Galway to give stuff back. They are multi-millionaires, and it's going to be it is actually great times for football in Galway. That centre in Athenry is going to be fantastic for them. And yeah, I mean, I said I wouldn't. I think Cork will win the league. I wouldn't rule Galway out from winning it. They're going to be certainly going to be very tough to beat. I'd be delighted if Treaty United could take a point off Galway in the Markets Field on Friday night, and delighted as well with a point in Turner's Cross on Monday. But it is, I mean, if you're looking at the budgets, you're looking at the fan base and everything. Certainly the likes of Waterford, Galway and Cork, unfortunately in Limerick we're a bit behind that, but the likes of Waterford, Galway and Cork will become Premier Division teams very soon. And it's good for the geography of the league at the moment, because if you look at the Premier Division, the southernmost team at the moment is Shamrock Rovers. And you've got Sligo Rovers, Finn Harps and Derry City up in the northwest. From Dundalk just down to Dublin, you've got the rest of the Premier Division. And you have a whole swathe of the country which is in the First Division now. So it's not good. I know everyone's there on merit. Don't get me wrong. UCD are fully deserved to beat Waterford in that playoff. And Drogheda are there on merit. And Finn Harps are there on merit. But it's from the geography of the league, it certainly would be good to see teams in the West and South.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the more teams and the more places for people to visit is better for the league. I don't agree with maybe a Monday night fixture, Finn Harps against, I don't know, Cork or something like that. I think that's a bit harsh on fans if you're taking them into the equation. But otherwise, I think, yeah, you could maybe put that game out on a Sunday or, a Saturday even, and then it kind of makes life a bit easier for people with families and stuff like that who'd like to go to games. But I love the away days, around the country and stuff like that. So I think you do a lot of travelling yourself. I'm sure you like getting around the country, because you're down Treaty most weeks as well. But I think you like going to the other grounds as well. I mean, wherever Treaty play, you tend to be home or away,
Yeah, but I hate the Monday night games as well. Look, it's a terrible night. The crowds are down. I don't know, maybe there's certainly, I think there's far too many games in the First Division. There's going to be 32 games for each club, and this bye week is horrible. But look, I think Monday night's a terrible night for football. It might be okay for TV, but for live football, for crowds, it's really bad. I think something needs to be done about that, even just in the Premier Division as well. I think it's at 36 games. I think there's too many for the Premier Division, in my view.
Yeah, maybe possibly, but it comes down to kind of timing and stuff like that, and then the fixture schedule's all over the place when it comes to Europe and that. So yeah, it's something for the FAI that they need to sort out. I mean, we can only discuss it, but ultimately we don't have a say in how they fix or change it. But I think that's it in terms of our League of Ireland show. We've covered all grounds there. Just going to the league table at the moment. Athlone must have been idle this week with that bye week, as you mentioned. So Cork are top. They've played 11 to 26 points. Galway have a game in hand and they could go level if they win that game. and then Longford have 9 games, so they've 2 games in hand, and they're on 18 points. So they could get up close if they win their next 2. Waterford played 11 and they're on 17, as you mentioned earlier, 9 points adrift of Cork. Then next up are Treaty, who have a game in hand, and the teams around them, and they're on 16 points. So actually Treaty could go jump from 5th to 3rd if they win, but obviously Longford have their games in hand. And then the rest of the teams: Wexford, Bray, Cove, Athlone. Athlone having a really poor season. They sacked their manager as well. Cove 7 points out of 11 games isn't a good return. Cork, not Cork. Bray 11 games played, 10 points, and then Wexford have 11 points from 11 games, and they're kind of all in and around the same area, kind of similar to the Premier Division with the Finn Harps and Drogheda Shells and UCD, and that's a similarity there.
Yeah, I think sometimes the fixtures can be a bit skewed because, as I said, Treaty have Galway at home, Cork away at the weekend. If you look at the other fixtures, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but certainly Wexford or Bray could pick up 6 points and suddenly be ahead of us given the way the run the fixtures go on. And so it can turn around. You mentioned the games in hand. Treaty's game in hand actually is a home game against Longford. Can't remember what Longford's other postponed fixture was, but so it can change very easily, and it is a bit of a strange one, as I said, with the 3 full-time professional teams and quite a few amateur teams as well. The budgets in the first division, as indeed in the Premier Division, can be incredibly different. I mean, obviously the likes of Shamrock Rovers would have a far, far bigger budget than the likes of Finn Harps or Drogheda.
Sorry, I just had me muted there. No, yeah, that's exactly it. But it will be interesting to see what happens this week, and we'll be back to discuss it again next week. But we'll have some content in between this, so make sure you are subscribed. Make sure to like the video, and make sure you have yourself a lovely day. We'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching, and take care.